It's the Athletor Podcast. Thank you so much, Brandon Eggum, for coming on this week. I- Before we even got started, you're giving us the secrets, man. And it's like, I don't know, they're not secrets, right? There's no such thing as secrets in this sport unless you ask Kale. But here's the thing. You guys do have a unique, I don't know if it's terribly unique, but I think it's fairly unique practice schedule, and you were going through it, and it starts to make way too much sense. You guys practice at 10 a.m. daily?
Yeah, yeah, that's our main time of practice, and we come in 10 o'clock. Like from our side of it, like the things that we see are great about it. Like typically, we used to wake up at like 6 a.m. or 5:30. We'd come in, we'd run, we'd lift, or we'd do our individual work at that time. And then we'd go to school the rest of the day and then come back in at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock. We'd practice, and you get done, showered up. It was like 6 o'clock. You're trying to run out and eat. And it was sometimes getting later, trying to prepare food at your house, whatever you're trying to do. And
Impossible, by the way.
yeah, it was tough
It's impossible.
and not good for like, you don't want to be eating that late, all the things going on, or maybe you make quick choices or poor choices. But yeah, so we changed it up. Now at 10 a.m. we practice and we wrestle. And then in the afternoon, we'll come in and we'll do our lift or our individual work and some of those things. And it's nice. Our guys get a little bit more sleep. They wake up at 8. Or at 8 o'clock, maybe they come in and roll out and get ready or do the things they need to. And then 10 o'clock at practice, right from practice, they go right to, we got a cafeteria here. And it's just a phenomenal spot where our guys go in, they get to eat for free. They go in and have a great meal, and then they go to class, do all their class. And then we sometimes rotate their, lifting based on like what's best for them, if they have class conflicts, sometimes our guys might not be lifting entirely as a team, but more as like in little pods and stuff. But yeah, it works out really well that way. We love it, and
I,
I think that people do it, but I don't think it's super common.
no, I don't. I don't either. I don't know why. Like, it's funny, man. I've visited your campus. I'd venture to say 80% of the Division One campuses across this country. And I would always text coach. And every time I would text him and be like, hey, what time is practice tomorrow? I would like roll my eyes and go, 3 o'clock, here it comes, sir. Why are you practicing at 3? Like it's like what? Like, give me, aside from the fact that you did it in middle school and high school, give me a good reason why 3 p.m. is like the time. And it just boggles my mind that there's never any thought that gets put into it. It can't be just that that's what they've always done. Do you think that's it?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard people say like, "Well, how do you do that with classes and stuff?" Like like you block out a time that works for you, and I think it's pretty simple. Like for us, we found out we've had less conflicts at 10 o'clock, and there's always conflicts, whether it was
Of
at three
course.
o'clock or 10 o'clock. Like it doesn't matter. There's always conflicts with somebody based
Yeah.
on a class they can't work around. But yeah, I don't know if it's like that. I don't know if yeah, we thought about it, and I know we've heard other sports that, I talked about the ideal time that you're just most focused. And we said, man, we've been taking some of these opportunities and putting that into our lifting and our running. Like, why not take that ideal time to what's most important to us as wrestlers and have it during the wrestling practice? And so that's why we made this shift, and it's worked out really well.
Yeah, sure. My ass is kicked at 3 p.m., by the way. Like I'm just like I'm one of those guys that gets up early. Joel is different. Joel stays up all night. I get up at 4:30. 3 p.m. my ass is kicked. Like let's be honest about it. Like I got nothing for you. Now, if you want
I
to talk about 6 p.m., I could kind of see that, right? Like, all right, I get my second win, whatever, but 3 p.m. my ass is kicked.
Yeah, me and one of my coaches, Marty Morgan, we laugh about it all the time. At 3 o'clock, we start yawning every single
Every
day.
day.
As
Every
we were
day.
walking down to the dungeon in the wrestling room down there, we'd be yawning. And still to this day, I mean, we got about 55 minutes here, and we're going to start yawning. At least for me, you guys might got a couple hours, but yeah, 55 minutes, I'm going to be yawning. So we'll have to be done by then. But yeah, it's like the worst time, I think. But
Hey, what do you think J Rob thinks of 10 a.m. practices?
I think Jay's okay with it. Like, I mean, his most important, the thing for him is like, how hard are you working? He still talks about that. Like every time I see him, it's like, are the guys working hard? Like that's what he says, And as long as they're running sprints, they're, like in his mind, like getting on that track and running, that was, always a big thing for him, especially in the summer and stuff with kind of the mindset of his camps and everything
Yeah,
there. But his number one thing, are they working hard? Like he always says that. So whether it's 10 or 3, I think the most important thing is they're working hard. Because when we were going at 3 o'clock, when Jay was here, really similar at 10 o'clock, we might be pulling guys if they had breaks and doing individual work with them then. So
sure,
at
sure.
the end of the day, like we're just trying to find a time that we thought was the best. And for us, the other thing is our cafeteria is like right outside our door, basically, like our nutrition center, I should call it.
Sure.
And our guys go right from practice, they shower, and they run right up and they get to eat. So like the whole system just works out really well at that time.
Yeah, it seems seems like there's just more advantages to actually
Hey,
putting thought into your day. Am I crazy?
yeah, right. Yeah, the only thing, Jay used to have this circuit machine, and it's still like if I see one of these pictures, I still get nightmares and like just want to curl up in a ball. But he had this little circuit machine down in our basement. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was, as a true freshman, like there was one morning like in preseason that you'd have to come in and you'd have to go around this thing, and it'd be 50 seconds on, and all the coaches around you, and they're getting you to like max out as much as you can, and then you're basically failing before you're down to 50 seconds, and you got to quickly run to the next. And there's like 14 stations with curls and all those different things. And then as soon as you're done, he'd put you on the wall and you have to run wall sprints. And you have to get down and back 3 times in under 30 seconds. And if somebody didn't do it, it didn't count. And every time somebody would fail, somehow, like after you failed like 5, 6 times, he must have slowed down the time and he pretended like you made it. But people would be like throwing up. It was like, I based my week off whatever day. If I was Tuesday morning, like everything revolved around that Tuesday morning. Like it had the fear of God in me. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that my freshman year of doing that. And then you get used to it and you kind of figure it out. But
Well,
boy,
figure it out. You say figure it out, but you just get stronger and bigger and faster. Like there's no figuring out those types of things. Like it's just you acclimate. You don't figure it out.
exactly. Yeah, you get used to the suffering and you start to be able to, I guess, function within that suffering. But my first few times, boy, I tell you what, those nights, Monday nights, I wasn't sleeping. I was up all night.
Really?
It's a fear of J Rob telling me I failed. So
Well, okay. One of the things that Joel and I were speaking about before we had John, and one of the reasons that we wanted to have you on is like I told you, we try to focus on processes, right? And so you're talking about these legacy things that J Rob would always have y'all do. But throughout the years, for decades now, not just like a handful of years, for decades, the Gophers have been the place for upper weights. Um, I think one of the things that goes really overlooked in a recruiting process is history of the weight, right? If you're a heavyweight and you're going to Cornell, maybe that's a bad example, and you're going somewhere other, like, and you have the pick of every school in the country and you're not going to Minnesota, you're foolish. Just because of history at the weight. You're foolish. Okay. What is it? Why did Minnesota become heavyweight U?
and I guess it's kind of a hard answer, but I would say this. I think a lot of it you got to give credit to the individuals that come here, and you look at like you got Lesnar and you got Gable and you got Cole Conrad and Tony Nelson, and there's guys people forget about like 3-time All-Americans like Michael Krales and some of these guys that were just great guys. But I think a big part of it was the environment they were in, like being around guys. Seeing guys that have had success and being like, wow, like, why can't I do this? Like other people before me have done this. The bar set so high. So that surely is part of it, and I would want to say, like, I've seen success. Yeah. If you say upper weights, you can look at guys like Brett Farr that is a unique guy. I mean, he had just amazing matches, or Scott Schiller, who beats Cox and lost to Snyder, who we end up seeing as just this amazing wrestler. But these guys coming out of high school, like they just had some things about them. So to give the credit to them, like there was just something inside them that you could see as a coach. And I think there's the ability you sometimes guess wrong, but you see these guys and like their worth ethic in the way that they believe. And I'll remember those two guys, Brett Farr and Scott Schiller, and I use their stories a lot. And both end up wrestling, Schiller 97 and Farr a little bit of time at 84 as well. But I remember when we recruited them, they were looking at some other schools, and the other schools said to them, like, hey, why would you go there? Like, you have this 3-time All-American or 2-time All-American in front of you. And even a guy like Brett Farr, some people said, man, I don't know if he can wrestle.
He's going to start. I don't know if he's going to start ever. Right.
Yeah.
You weren't like, there wasn't like a, like when you recruit Brock Lesnar from a junior college, he's going to start, right? But with Brett Farr, you don't know, right? Like
people are saying, some people are saying, like, I don't know if he's even Division I,
Yeah.
But my point is, like, what I knew was right about him, what I knew was about Schiller, that was their mindset and the things that they said. And they both said something different times that I'm recruiting them, but they both said something that I remember at the moment sitting across the desk from them that I thought, wow, this is exactly what I heard from Schiller, and it was the reasons all these people are telling them not to come there. You got this, Kevin Steinhaus, he's this multiple-time All-American. Why would you go there? Sonny Young, why would you go there? And they said, what the people don't understand is that's the reason I'm going there. And I was like,
why
wow,
I'm going.
That's why I'm going. And so, you talked about the heavyweights and these guys. I think, like, one, there's no doubt you have to have an environment that's friendly and that's going to help these guys develop. And I think we've done a really good job of that. I think they've seen the path for them, but I also know that these guys have a mindset that has put them in that spot. And Gable Steveson being he still is, at a level that's just above like some of the greatest competitors that I've been around. It's hard to understand his mind. Like, we joke, and I told this joke a million times. I remember when he was young and just coming into college, and we're talking about, like, hey, this guy's really good at leg riding, and you got to be careful. Like, you put, like this. He goes, well,
he doesn't give a rip.
No, because I'll just stand up and pull the leg out. And I was like,
duh.
I'm like, that's not how it works, Gable. Yeah, that'd be great, but it doesn't work that way. And, like, well, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess you're going to have to learn the hard way. And so then he goes out there and he just stands up, pulls a leg out. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
dang it. Coach, all you got to do is be a freak athlete with incredible intelligence too. Duh.
Yeah.
Hold on a second though. Like, so here's what's really interesting to me, and hopefully people that are listening to this podcast really understand what those names you said a minute ago mean to the world of wrestling, right? Because I think it gets passed up that, Gable Steveson, I've watched a lot of wrestling over the years. He might be the greatest wrestler I've ever seen in my life. Timing, technique, athleticism. I don't think I've ever seen anyone like him. That said, he's a completely different athlete than Kole Conrad. Like, you couldn't be more stark opposite as far as an athlete goes. Okay, now that's not taking anything away from Kole Conrad, but he's a big, lumbering, humongous man. What is it that you look for in a heavyweight? Because those are two different. Now, obviously, if you can get, Gable was number one in the country coming out of high school. So obviously you want that kid no matter what weight class he's in, right? But I don't think that Conrad was, okay? So what do you look for in a heavyweight when you're recruit? What are you looking for in Coy Hopke?
In all of our heavyweights, or in all of our recruits, whether it's heavyweight or not, I would say the one thing that I see that has helped us have success, and Kole Conrad's a great example that you're right. He was not the best guy initially coming out. Tony Nelson.
Yeah.
These guys were like guys coming out that you could see, in all fairness, you could see their senior year, like, wow, making progress. Mm-hmm. But the difference is really the mindset in these guys, the way that they live their lives, like seeing how disciplined and dedicated they are. And, we really try to recruit kids that have that same mindset. Once you get guys like that on your team, then you see in the recruiting process, guys are going to be following that same suit, or are going to gravitate more towards our program if it's a fit for them. If they have other things that they are looking forward to doing. And when they go to college program, this might not be a fit for them. And you don't always guess right, or sometimes you make mistakes. But I think in general, like the biggest thing is we look at them as individuals. You see things that are great in them, whether, Cole Conrad was this, again, when you talk about mindset, he was one of the toughest dudes I ever met. Like he was fighting in Bellator. The problem was, like, he was the champ. He couldn't get any fight. Nobody would fight him because, like, some of the goal, I think, I could be wrong, I don't understand the MMA world perfectly, but is to have success, like build this resume.
Yeah.
Then I go to the UFC, right? And I'm gonna
Yeah.
but I gotta be smart and strategic on my way there.
Sure.
And then they come up against Cole Conrad, and nobody fights him. Like, nobody wants to fight him because, like, it's not going to be appealing. Look, this guy's going to pummel you to death, and you're going to have a loss, and then your career's. And so at the end, the reason why Conrad got out of it was because
He's bored.
He's like, I'm trying to make some money and I'm trying to have success. Nobody will fight me. So eventually that was, then he went and he trained with Lesnar, and I can't imagine what those guys were like. Like, honestly, I'm sure Lesnar could tell you stories, and I've heard him talk about Conrad, saying this guy could be in the UFC and could be a UFC champ. Like, he's
no doubt. And by the way, like, I'm not trying to take anything away. That kid was a great athlete.
Yeah.
Right? Like, great athlete. Like, he beat Mako. He's smart, intelligent, super good athlete.
Yeah, he had it right here, and he had the work ethic. But again, whether it's Gable, like his abilities and everything's Conrad, Tony Nelson, like, man, Tony, like, he had to really battle. Like, he had so many of those tough matches that were like a 3-2 win, a 3-1 win, where he's on top back then, riding guys out. He won so many matches with the ride out, and which was impressive. But those guys, when I think of all their success, Michael Crails, who was in some ways he wasn't super tall. His frame and wasn't big like Tony Nelson's. And he's a 3-time All-American. He's a genius, and he's still around. He still comes in and rolls with guys. But those guys, they're mentally so tough that when you talk to them, whether it was Schiller, Brett Favre, like, they say things that when you're sitting there that other people are like, well, I'm not going to come here. Like, I mean, sometimes parents come in and say, well, where's my son going to fit? Like, what weight's he going to be? How do you see him fit in? Like, like, what about this guy? And
if you can't make our lineup, how do you expect to win a national championship?
Right.
Like, so that's the thing that I tell my son. Look, we got a real good wrestling team here. Poway, California we're pretty darn good. And he says to me, he goes, well, maybe next year I do that. I do. Listen to me. If you can't make, like, your goals are very big in this sport. If you can't make the team, then you're not close to your goals yet. Period. The end. I don't care if we're number 4 in the country. It doesn't matter. Your goal is to be a national champion, then so be it. That's fine. You might not make the team. Sorry. But you're in the right spot, right? Like, you're in the right spot. You're in the right spot, right? Because we could have stayed in Central Texas, and he could have probably gotten dates with the prom queen just because he'd be undefeated and this and that, But it is what it is, man.
You're exactly right. And Tony Nelson, there's Ben Burrow, who lost a trice in overtime, hadn't won, was going to be an All-American the year before. And then that's who Tony, as a freshman, has to beat out, is Ben Burrow. Like, I mean, there was no doubt he had to look and say, wow, this could be challenging. And, Cole Conrad and Lowney was here, Olympian, and took third at the Olympics. And, like, he would have to beat these guys out. Like, so these guys are coming in, and all these guys are coming in with people in front of them. But you said it perfectly. Like, they're there for the right reasons. They're there not just to make the team, but when I make the team, I want to compete for a national title, is what they thought. And it's hard to beat a guy like that. And we have guys in our team right now, like, based on, the different year, we had guys transfer out and we lost some guys, or some guys graduate, or, a guy like Blockus comes back for a 6th year. Like, there were shifting parts. We thought Gable was going to be back. We moved Garrett Jones, who was at heavyweight, down to 97, and then he's not back. So there was, like, some shifting things. But the one thing that's common with a lot of these guys that are coming through that weren't even the blue chips in high school now that I see are coming through and having big wins for us, they just have a really strong belief. They're not afraid of failure. Like some people avoid it, right? Like you're saying, like, I'm not going to go there. I don't want to do this. Like, I'm worried about the consequences. Other people just look at it as an opportunity to learn and get better. And that's the mindset of these heavyweights. I feel like that's the way they thought. And everyone, it doesn't matter if you're heavyweight, 97, 25, across the board. Like, if they have that type of thinking, those guys go on to be really successful.
You've talked a lot about mindset and, how crucial it is to the success of, the athletes that you've had there. How much of having the right mindset and mental toughness is something that a kid shows up with versus something that can be developed or taught?
There's no doubt. I think they have this. They have to have the ability. Like, you see kids that have sometimes found ways to lose. Like, I've watched kids in high school, great wrestler, and like they find a way to lose, and you see that carry through with those individuals sometimes into college, and sometimes never changes. So it's really, really difficult, like the way that they're thinking and processing. But I believe that you can develop it and build off of it. But I think the environment that the kid in has to be really healthy. They have to feel like they're in a real safe spot. I think that's one thing our staff does really well, is that we make the guys know that we care about them. Like, it's hard not to talk about winning. Like we do, like, even when we say, hey, we're not talking about winning, we're talking about effort, we're talking about these things, like that comes up. And as humans, you think about the W all the time, but you gotta, like, the goal is really, what is the processes and mindset that you can put in place to help develop you to compete at the highest level, so that the W comes, but that's like the afterthought. It's just a very difficult thing.
So hold on a second now, because Joel and I are actually having a private conversation as you're speaking, and I know that that's rude, but it's true. And here's the thing. We all know those kids that find a way to snatch a loss out of the jaws of victory. They do it too often. Is there a step-by-step process that you go through, or does it have to be case by case? Because there has to be like a couple things that, like, hey, all right, what is your pre-match routine? What is your go-to kind of speech or question that you ask a kid that finds a way to lose these freaking close ones, man?
Yeah, because it does become habit. I think that, it becomes this bad habit. And the thing that they don't want to have happen is what paralyzes them in the match. And then it happens, right? And they sense it happen. You can see it as a coach or as a spectator, like, whoa, it's happening. I think I think it's individual, but I think the important thing is whoever's really close, like, you got to have a connection with the individual that you're talking with, whether it's the coach or a teammate, and the guy's got to feel safe that he can be openly talk to you about it. Or I think you just got to, like, explain the process, like, sit down, let them talk about what you're seeing happen there. And I think in some ways, like, to be the best competitor, if you like, just being critical but also honest with them because you care about them. Just, when you see a guy find a way to lose, like, if you can go through a match with them and show them, like, in this process here, half the match you wrestle this way and good things are happening. And then near the end, like, we make the mistake. We all know, like, what's the easiest time to score. Sometimes it's like with 30 seconds left in the match, you're down by 1. It's like the easiest time to score because the other guy he stops wrestling, right? It's wrestling, he stops wrestling. And I think that we've all seen that. So even this athlete that finds a way to lose his match, he's seen other people do that. He gets pointed out. But if you can, depict to them, they don't have to. It's just a decision. Usually they're worrying about things that they can't control. If you can get them to focus on the process and, like, the things they need to do, if they can somehow keep their focus on, like, the most important thing, winning the next battle, like getting inside tie, or whatever it would be, but wrestling the next position, like, if you can get them to start doing baby steps that way, like, but sometimes they just don't know what to do. So to tell
No, that's fair. That's fair.
doing this is hard to do. But if you tell me what to do, then tell me what to do. Well, like, whatever it is, like, when you're attacking, you're doing these, good things happen. And we don't have to put ourselves in danger or wrestle foolishly. But sometimes I think as parenting, I do it as a parent all the time. I say, hey, stop doing this, stop doing this. And I've read a million books. and I know it's fact. Like, that is not a good way to coach, not a good way to
Parent.
parent.
No, it's not.
Need to, like, help me understand and help me see, or let me maybe explain myself why these are the things I could have done better.
Yeah.
And then help me through that process. But I need to know what I should be doing versus just told
What I should not do. Yeah, that's interesting, because it's like one of the things that I see a lot in athletes like that is their body language changes. Their body language changes. I'll give you an example. Don't get ridden out. Don't get ridden out for a full period. Don't get ridden out. And then 30 seconds into the second period, when they're on bottom, they're sprinting back to the center to get a restart. But at 90 seconds in, when they've been ridden for 90 seconds, now they're fixing their headgear, and now they're fixing their socks, and now they're looking down at the ground on those restarts. And it's very obvious. It's very, very obvious that, man, these are decisions. Like, you can control that. You can control the way that you react to a restart, even if you are frustrated as heck because you've just been ridden for 90 seconds. Man, putting the emphasis on what to do makes a whole lot of difference. It really does, man. Because we can't. How many times have you heard, youth coaches or whatever go, don't do that. Don't do that. Oh, that's not helpful, dude. That's not helpful.
It's hard not to say wrestle, right? Like, it's hard not to
all the freaking time.
There's a million things you could say, but you do have to wrestle. And
I'm going to defend that one because there are times where you need to be reminded to continue to react in the way that you're reacting. Wrestle means just keep doing what you're doing. Right. Don't stop. So I'm going to defend that one. Mostly because I agree.
Yeah. Again, I think the mindset of the kid is everything. And I think it's big in recruiting. I think sometimes it's in the recruiting process, people will tell you what they want to hear. And, on both ends, it's coming from both sides, whether it's the recruiter. And I think if you can have a really good relationship with the kid, and you can sit down and break through some of those things and find out the things that they need, that they can be honest, like, this is what I need to succeed, and if your program has those things, I think that fit and being honest on both ends is going to be a really positive experience for them. And we know in wrestling, whether it's, your level at a high school, like, those kids are amazing, like the best in the country, or whether you're just at an average high school, you're an average wrestler in high school right now as a underclassman or a senior, or you're at Division I level, we know that wrestling is going to be difficult. And I think when guys understand, hey, there's plenty of ups and downs. I don't care how successful you were in college. Like, or in high school, when you come to college, you're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And the sooner that you understand that, and the sooner you understand that these downs, these ups and downs, like, how you handle them and how you respond to them is going to have is going to be the biggest part of your success. If you're going to grow, like,
those are the biggest jumps for sure. No question. I see him, my son, I go, why are you so upset when you lose? I go, it doesn't make any sense to me. He goes, what are you talking about? He's like, I just lost. Blah, 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 blah. And he starts like yelling. I'm like, whoa. When have you made the biggest gains in your wrestling career? He's like, and then he gets like really angry again. He's like, you're right. But he knows, like, intellectually. So now it's just a matter of seeking that stuff. We're literally hunting losses as much as possible. We're hunting losses. And when I say we, I mean him and the people around him, not just him. Like, the kids that are like-minded are like, oh yeah, doesn't matter. Like, if I go put because Coach Myers, my son's not starting. Obviously he's a freshman. But Coach Myers puts the second and third string kids in against local dual meets, right? And he should, because there's no reason to burn weigh-ins for some of these kids. And like, our guys are going out there and teching everyone. Like our second string is pretty darn good. And so now it's like, okay, how do I find you, second string guy, somebody to lose to. Like, okay, now we have to be as excited to lose as because the A team, well, that's easy, right? They're going to the best competitions in the country. That's easy to find losses there,
Yeah.
So it's like we got to actively find losses for you guys, and I think once you shift that mindset, oh man, it's really fun. It's fun because now it's not even about the wrestling. It's just like go compete with yourselves. So that's a lot of fun. Now, how do you see that in a recruit? Because you can ask all the right questions, and like you said, half of them are blowing smoke because they want to be recruited. But how do you find that in a kid that you're recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, you can see it in tournaments and stuff, like the way guys compete. I think, like when they put it on the line, like there's some kids that, like you see, like you're getting to the spot where they're going to become juniors and there's a lot of pressure and everyone's thinking about the scholarship and their offer. And you can see some guys, they just come off of like a really good tournament and you wonder like, wow, this guy hasn't competed in a while. Is he protecting, this like till he's all of a sudden then
Jared Lawrence and I had the exact conversation this morning. Jared Lawrence and I had the exact conversation this morning. Sorry, go ahead. Because it happens a lot more now.
right?
Thanks, Willie and Flo.
In coaching, we see it too. Like we're wondering, like, how come this guy isn't competing? Well, he's the number one guy. Like, how come he's not competing? Every now and then you see that, you make you wonder, like, is he injured? It could be a million reasons. Doesn't mean that he's dodging anything. But at the same time, some guys do that and they'll commit and then they're open to compete again. But you see other guys, it's like, wow, this guy's throwing it on the line time after time after time. So as long as they're healthy and doing that, like, that they have that mindset. It's some guys, like, they probably compete way too much, like they need to dial it back at times. But that's, each individual can do it the way they want. But I can see it as when they compete, like how they are, like when they come with a loss, like how do they respond back to it? Yeah, you can see how some guys you can just tell, like it's like what you guys said, like your motives or your motivation for whether it's these, guys go out to compete, like they should be chasing, whether you're chasing losses, but they have that open mind, like I'm going to try to compete against the best person because really my goal is so far from here. Like it's not about winning a state title, high school state title, or making this high school state team. Like ultimately, if they have these steps and they're goal oriented and they create this process through their daily, yearly goals, if they're really setting goals, they're going to start, you would think they're going to start thinking that open mindset and come out, be offensive, wrestle in the positions where I need to get better, like all those things. And yeah, I guess that's kind of how we see it. And then when you sit down and talk with kids, some kids you can just tell, like, again, like you could be, maybe the guys are just saying all the right words, but there's certain guys just talk about it and you can tell they love wrestling, like they're passionate, what they care about, the questions they're asking. Like it's one, okay, you're interviewing us about we're interviewing you, but then they come out, you can see like at dinner with that recruit, you see where their heart is. And like their heart is in wrestling, and when I was a competitor, I remember it was easy to work hard and compete and get the extra workouts in because like I loved wrestling, and then like you become a coach and it's like, wow, like how do I get back to figuring out these principles and these different methods and basic skills and stuff that I think helped, me and the other coaches were talking about the things that helped us be successful. And how do we do that and lay this into our foundation of how we coach and teach so that our guys can come out and do that same thing? Because I didn't like losing. I felt pressure at times. I tightened up a lot of different times. And like, I know some of the thoughts that were going through my head and some of the things I was thinking about. And I know the times that I competed better, and now we get a chance to pick the brains of Gable, Steveson, and all these other guys that are around. So it's been nice it's hard to understand sometimes where they're at. Like the confidence within them is, you see that with guys like Kyle Dake and them, they have something that even though they're all different, like personalities, like at the Olympics, I was like, man, there's a lot of guys that are thinking the same way here. It was just awesome that year at the Olympics with COVID, like families weren't around, which sucked for the families, but we were in this hotel with these high level thinkers, David Taylor, all these guys, and they're all just sitting there and they have no one else to communicate and talk with or take their time with. So they're all together all the time. And it was just intriguing to listen and learn.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. Let's go to the other end of the spectrum then. So if if what you're looking for in a recruit is that when they compete, they're competing with passion, and they wrestle on the back end, and they're not protecting. If that's the positive thing, now there has got to be a red flag that you see, whether it be through the interview process, like you said, whether it be watching them compete. What is the biggest red flag that you see with a recruit when you go, this kid might, his best wrestling might be behind him?
I think you can see sometimes when guys are feeling pressure and that it has like the impact it has on them when they compete. Like you can see guys really shut down. And I think that's something that I always fear, because the mind is a really difficult, like if they're in the right place and that they're not so brutally hard. Like it's good to be critical of yourself, but you also got to have some forgiveness and be able to go out there and continue to work and stuff. But I think you can see some guys are so focused on the winning part of it that regardless like how they're wrestling, they may shut down, but even if they win the match, they're excited about it. They're happy about it. Now you can tell it's really, they're just focused solely on getting their hand raised. And I know at the Division I level,
a lot of wins there. You gotta win.
Really difficult.
Yeah, you got to win there though, right? But it's, man, that's tough. That's tough.
It's hard to, like, again, we talked about it when guys are coming in and they're worried about the situation being completely perfect for them. Like they have to be able to see the opportunities that are, like when you recruit them, that are at your program for them. They got to believe in themselves, and they got to be okay with being tested. Like we want guys that are going to come in and going to fight for the spot. And I think like you have to, as a coach, you have to know that anybody has an opportunity to develop here and become the guy. And it doesn't matter what your name was or how many badges you have or medals coming out of high school. Like when you come here, like you have the same opportunity as anybody else. You work hard, you do things right. Like you're going to get noticed by the coaches. And sometimes those guys, they're late bloomers, but because of their work ethic, and sometimes the guys that didn't get exactly what they wanted in high school or elementary or didn't win everything, sometimes those guys are still chasing it, and they've had to deal with not having the very top level of success, and they keep working hard. Like it's like, wow, this guy's going to be a grinder and a goer. And I remember even when my son was really young, like I remember the first time he won a state title. I was like third or fourth grade, and he won a state title, and he was so excited. He'd been dreaming about this forever. And I sat down with him and I said, this is probably gonna be shocking to you a little bit because I'm so proud of you. But I said, a part of me is hurting a little bit here because I love it when you had to chase this thing. I'll never forget that like moment with him, and saying to him, because like this is you to be the best, you got to be able to be on top. You got to be able to perform when you're the guy expected. But I also know I want the guy that's going to be chasing, continue to work there. And sometimes guys in high school that haven't got it, that we've all watched and say, wow, look at how hard this guy trains. Look how he's never discouraged. Like he's upset, frustrated. You could tell the worst way, but it only brings him back the next day. He's calling you on a Sunday saying, hey, I want to come in, I want to work. You're like, hey, you need to have a day off the mat here. Nope. Like I've been watching film. It's sometimes you got to like, help those guys too. Make sure that
those are good problems to have, but that's the kind of problem you want, right?
That's the guy that goes on to do amazing things. That's, those are some of the guys I think about when I think of why a guy like Conrad and Tony Nelson and Brett Favre and Scott Schiller like end up being some of the best guys in the country at that time. It's because that's how they believe, passionately want to win. Like they have the strongest desire. They hate losing, but they're willing to put the time in and do the things right. And so, I think that's what you look for.
Are there questions that you can ask? Are you like, so a good friend of mine is a high level executive at Qualcomm, and he has to interview hundreds of people. Right. And he's like, oh, I throw landmines in there all the time. Like I throw, like, depending upon how you react to these questions, I know whether you're a good fit for us. Are there questions that you ask during the recruiting process that kind of throw up either red flags or they're like big green flags, like, oh, this kid is for real?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times we ask guys about like what's going to help them succeed here. Number one, like what do they need? And so we listen to like some of the things that they say. Like you can kind of tell what's like at their heart. Like so they'll talk about their wrestling. How really into their wrestling are they? Like are they paying attention? So some of them are really give you a lot of insights. Like wow, this guy's really dissecting his wrestling. Because we've watched a ton of film on them already. We see maybe where their strengths are on top, bottom. So like usually the guys are spot on, like they're seeing the same things we are and they're saying it. So I'm like, well, they're really reflecting on themselves properly. But the other thing is I think just ask them like, what's important to them, what they're looking for in a program too. So the one thing that's important to us is like guys that talk about like they don't just talk about themselves all the time. They also talk about the team and like what they can do. And you can just tell like they're there to help make the program, to make everybody around them better. And I do think like you have to be selfish to be great. There's no doubt about it. But those types of kids are the ones that I feel like really excel for us because they reflected on themselves. They know exactly what they really looked into where they need. They're not afraid to criticize themselves and dissect themselves a little bit. At the same time, you can see that they're there to help other people. And I think often like when you look over at the bench and you see these team and these people that you truly care about, they're like brothers to you. Like a lot of times when you're ready to give up or your heart's pounding and you can't squeeze your hands, you're just legs are tired, your back, like you're thinking, oh, maybe the wrong things at times. And you look over and you see that and you'll do things for other people more than you would for yourself. That's a difference maker. You hear stories of moms lifting cars off babies and all these crazy stories they could never do, like I think like that is very empowering, and we want kids that are going to be here for the team, and in the event the environment here is better for everybody. Everyone's happy, everyone's working hard, or there's always ups and downs, but
Sure.
I'm sure you've seen several kids throughout your years of coaching that, start off the season well and then, maybe run into a little adversity during the season. And, one of the things you talked about was confidence being important, being able to kind of maintain that confidence and belief in yourself. What's your approach to, coaching a kid that maybe has run into that point in the season where they maybe lost their confidence and their wrestling or their development?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like, yeah, wrestling, you can have one win and you can get right back on track. You know what I mean? Like, but you're right. You can be have a lot of close losses and you could really be hard on yourself. And all of a sudden it's almost more difficult to pick it up. I think for some of these guys, it's just continue to support them. And for us as a coaching staff, it's to tell them like, listen, like your effort was great. And that's one of the most important things. If their effort was there and they didn't win, you have to be really positive and on point with that. I think you have to let them know right away, because all of a sudden I'm walking off the mat. I'm expected, because I didn't get my hand raised, I didn't win the match, that, I'm already thinking there's nothing that you could tell me I did wrong that I probably haven't thought about 1,000 times. But in those moments when you come to me and you say, man, I just want you to know, these are the things that you did really well. I'm proud of you here. Your effort was here. Like here, maybe you wrestled in a spot, or you got outside your wheelhouse here. You tried something that isn't typical of you. And in this point, like, look at this. Like I used Garrett Jones. Like he was wrestling his match against Nebraska. We could win this duel. We have it locked down. Like our guys have wrestled amazing. He wrestled a great match against the returning Big Ten champion. And you could see as the match wears on, it's going in his favor. And I'm like, wow, this is amazing. He's riding the guy. I think it's about 40 seconds. He jumps over the top, locks up a cradle on the guy. I've never seen him do the cradle before. He locks it up. He slips off and the guy gets away. If he could have rode the guy for the next minute and a half, or next minute and 20 seconds, or at least for another 30, 40 seconds. Like it was a very controlled spot when he jumped there. And I think he could have won the match right there. And so I bring that up. I said, that is something, like, to be great, you got to know where your strengths are, and you have to wrestle in those areas. And you can practice in other areas, you can get better in other areas. But when you wrestle a match against somebody you're not supposed to win, like, you got to stay focused, you got to wrestle in that area, and you got to stay in that area and look what you did in this situation. against the Rutgers match, like it's a week later or whatever. He's wrestling the number 8 guy in the country. Very good match. As the match goes on, he does a good job. He does some basic defense stuff very well, some good attacks, good pace. As it's going on, I can see that he's getting stronger. At the very end of the match, they get in one position. He almost does an outside, like a lateral drop. I've never seen him do this before. He almost does it. And I'm about ready to pull my hair out. I kind of, but he doesn't. And he gets away from it. And then later he gets into a high crotch, a go behind high crotch, and he finishes in overtime. And he has this big win. If he'd have tried that, he would have lost. And it reminded me of the cradle, but he made that. So we talked a little bit about it. But that's what I think that you have to do. You have to get guys to focus in on like the things they did well. So after I lose, like as a coach, you go to the guy and you talk to him. And if their effort wasn't there, like you can't make up things that weren't. But if they were things right, but didn't maybe wrestle like their best match, like those are things that they're going to understand. And pretty soon they're like, wow, like coach was talking to me about these things I did well. Like all of a sudden the fear and the negativity that comes with losing, you start to diminish them. Pretty soon I can be a competitor for you as a coach.
Yeah. Steve Neal talks about it constantly. He's like, you have to wrestle where you're good, right? Because look, let's be honest, right? A guy like Steve Neal, he was so fast and so mobile as a heavyweight. You didn't want to get tied into underhooks with this. Like, he's like, I'm not messing around with underhooks. Forget that. I'm staying on the outside where I can blow your doors off, And he talks about that all the time. He's like, I could, it's easy for me to go wrestle in underhooks because, you kind of get like that. You got to lean on somebody sometimes. You can wrestle a little differently. He's like, but I can't. He's like, that's not where I'm good. It was a much harder way to wrestle, but it is what it is. Okay. We got to bring this thing home, brother. We're going to fire off a couple quick questions for you at the end here. And I don't want you to think about them. I just want you to answer. All right.
Not good.
No, you're fine.
Not good at these games.
Have a good time. Best wrestling shoe in history. Go.
Well, Asics split sole tube.
Oh, I like that. I like it. Okay. I like those too. That was like one of my first pair of wrestling shoes.
That's old school.
Yeah, it is. Those were great. Okay. If you had a magic wand and you could change one thing about the sport of wrestling, what would it be?
Judgment calls.
Really? So stalling's gone. No, that's great. No, I love this. Stalling's gone.
Yeah. The step out on the line. That one's like, I hate this one. Like sometimes you push me out and you get called for stalling, and sometimes it's action, and I'm like, oh, I can't take this anymore.
It's maddening.
We get the calls all the time, and I'm like, I don't even know if I can. This is a big call in this match. I'm like, and
it's a big call. I will take it. I guess we got to take it, but it's a bunch of crap, is what it is.
Yeah.
There needs to be a hard and fast rule. And by the way, if we're going to be completely honest, I know like we're trumpeting the step out rule. The grounded rule in freestyle is nonsense too. It's nonsense. If your foot goes out of bounds, it's 1, or it's not, whatever you decide. But foot goes out of bounds, it's 1 point. That's it. Period. The end. Sorry. I'll get off my soapbox now. Okay, good. I love that. By the way. All right. Who is on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Who is on the Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
Who are the top 4 guys? Like if there was a Mount Rushmore of wrestling, who would be the top 4 guys on Mount Rushmore of wrestling?
Well, I'm going to be biased here when I say Gable, but I would put both Gables on there.
Okay, Gable and Gable, love it. Is that Gable Steveson's first appearance on the Mount Rushmore?
Yeah,
it is. All right, I love it. No, Joel keeps track of all of these. By the way, go ahead.
Yeah. You'd have to put Kale on there, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
What am I at, 3?
Mm-hmm. One more. This is where everyone gets a little bit. It's tricky.
I mean, I'm putting down Burroughs.
Yeah. Look, I say it all the time. If you want the definitive list, everyone's going to have a different list, but here's the definitive one. Gable, Smith, Kale, JB. Like that's like the.
I forgot Smith. I can't believe I forgot.
But you see what I'm saying though? Like everyone's like, and that's because I put pressure on you. I'm, like,
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
Interview.
But
If I had thought about it, I would.
right, but do you see what I'm saying? Like that's. I mean, yeah, Gable Steveson, sure. 100.
I said Gable, just like.
Yeah, but the truth
He
is,
said he
look,
was part of my
if we're
program,
gonna talk about a
so
complete athlete, I've never seen like the things that he did, and I'm not taking anything away from this athlete. In fact, I'm actually I want to commend the kid. Trent Hilger is such a good athlete, and Gable Steveson picked him apart one time, multiple times, but one time in particular, I just remember Gable going to like that split step and just picking his ankle up and going, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Because that's a 240 something pound man.
Yeah.
That you're literally just grabbing his shoe and saying, this is mine. You don't get to step on this anymore. I was like, well, he's operating at a different speed.
Yeah, he's so explosive. I mean, his ass is like this big, and
right.
So like, power there. And
yeah.
If you get that guy underneath you, it's a problem. But
yeah,
I don't know if I say that on the podcast, but
I should get Gable. I didn't. Yeah, definitely. We should definitely get Gable on the podcast. All right.
You should.
Anything else, Joel, before we go?
No, but if you want to know our current Mount Rushmore rankings, it's number 1, Kale, number 2, JB, number 3, John Smith, and number 4, Dan Gable.
Wow.
That's it. That's it.
And so now Gable Steveson owes me because I got him on the list. So
that's it. He's on there. Gable.
Yeah, he's indebted to me now. But thank you guys for everything. It was awesome catching up with you guys. Good luck.
Thank you very much, Coach. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. We'll see you guys.
Thanks so much.